a new report into the South African schools by Corruption Watch entitled Sound the Alarm has made some damaging allegations about the country's schooling system. It claims misappropriation of resources, maladministration and the abuse of authority are rife in schools. They also have raised concerns about bribery, extortion, including allegations of sextortion. Now, to respond to this, we are joined by the Basic Education spokesperson, Mr. Elijah Mhlanga, who talks to us via the virtual platform. Mr. Mhlanga, thank you very much for your time. Let me begin with what some of this report says, and that is that there are school principals who are abusing their power when it comes to procurement, irregularities, or just general mismanagement of monies. How many principals have been dismissed owing to these allegations?
Well, it's not just principals. Good morning, Chloe. This matter is not just about principals. It's an issue of governance in schools. So it would be wrong to say how many school principals have been dismissed as a result of this. When a school principal does not sign the school checks alone, they sign this together with the chairperson of the school governing body. So we need to look at the entire governance structure in a particular school and say, what is it that is taking place to allow corruption to happen, instead of looking at just one individual who is actually part of a body that has been put in place by the South African Schools Act.
Yeah. All right. So let's look then at the governance structure as a whole. The report says that there is still the issue of people who are close to certain people being employed. That's nepotism in plain language. What processes have been put in place by the department to curb that?
Yeah, all the laws, Schools Act is there, the employment of educators is there, and all other regulations are in place in terms of policies that govern the way people are appointed. And those things provide for processes and procedures that need to be followed by. The people that are involved always find a way to give an advantage to people that they know. It's all in the panels that are put together to interview the people that are asking for employment in those particular schools. And here we are talking about people that are employed particularly by the school governing body in terms of educators, but also general workers that are there in the school. So chances are that someone will know someone, and because that person is connected to someone, another person who might not be successful or whose relatives might not be successful is going to complain and say that there's nepotism there. But there are clear cases of nepotism as well. And where this happens, people need to report. And we're glad that people are using the Corruption Watch platform to report malpractice that they're picking up in the schools where they're involved. So where there's a law that's tight, people will always look for a loophole and utilize that to undermine good governance in a school. But it's not something that we need to just note. We need to take action against that. But the district offices are there to conduct investigations and make sure that action is taken against those that will be found guilty. Yeah.
More shocking, Mr. Mhlanga, is what the report says is the practice, I don't know if you want to call it a practice, but is teachers still asking pupils for sexual favors. Perhaps the question here is how many of these people are fired and, more importantly, are placed on the sexual offences register?
Well, last year this time, we published a new set of regulations that govern the punishment that should be meted at the teachers who have sexual relations with learners. And that is in place. The South African Council of Educators as well, they are always reminding teachers that any relationship with a learner is completely outlawed. There are hundreds and hundreds of teachers that get fired because of that, where there's an issue of sexual offenders. We also record that with the Department of Social Development and Justice, especially where underage children are involved. But where that is different, we deal with that in terms of the Labour Relations Act, which allows us to discipline teachers who are found to be on the wrong side, but also says, as indicated, also work towards removing that teacher from the role of educator so that they are no longer able to work with children in a school environment. And we hope that provinces will also make sure that a teacher who works in one school and move to another province when they are fired in one place should not be given an opportunity to work anywhere because they are no longer trusted in terms of taking care of young people.
Yeah, I appreciate that you say that it's hundreds and hundreds of teachers who have been placed on that sexual offenders list. But I suppose, I think for the viewer to get a clearer picture of just how rife this issue is of teachers asking pupils for sexual favors, are you able to give us a round figure?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about teachers who have been dismissed from the sector. The registration on the sexual offenders list, that's another matter that has its own process, and that would have to be a process that is specifically dealt with in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, not with the Education Department, because here we only deal with labor relations and dismissing that person. But if criminal charges have been pressed against that person, then they would have to make their name would have to make its way to the sexual offenders register. But in terms of the number of teachers who have been dismissed, I don't have the latest stats right now. But the South African Council of Educators, who are the professional body handling these matters, would be able to give you the latest figures because this is what they do on a day-to-day basis, handling teacher matters of ill discipline among teachers, as SACE is the custodian of the code of ethics for all educators. Remember, before you can teach, you are given a certificate by SACE that you can now work as a teacher. And if you breach that code, then they take that certificate away from you if you are found guilty. Yeah.
Whether you call it theft, the embezzlement of funds, or the misuse of resources, if we sum that up, that is corruption, Mr. Mhlanga. And the suggestion by the report is that this accounts for 43%, both in primary and high schools. What's being done by the department to tighten controls?
At the moment, we are currently amending the Basic Education Laws Amendment, which is the South African Schools Act and other pieces of legislation that govern the way we manage education as a sector. And one of the key issues that we've discussed previously, even on this platform, is the whole issue of the powers of governing bodies, because this is a governance matter. What systems are in place that each SGB would apply to make sure that there's transparency, there's accountability at school level, because as you indicated, you're saying primary schools as well as secondary schools, which means this is school level corruption, which must be dealt with at that level. But you can see that people are reporting, which means there's frustration there in terms of the action that should take place. So district offices are the ones that will investigate and then pass on the report to the Provincial Education Department, who will then take action if malpractice have indeed been found to have taken place. Where the principal is the one responsible, then the district would know what to do. But where is the SGB? The HOD still has the powers to dissolve an SGB. But in most cases, you find that there's a conflict between the school principal as well as the SGB in terms of how the finances of the school are concerned. Remember, we send money to schools every year, and people in the SGB get to know how much is there. And everyone, perhaps due to unemployment or other reasons, just simply corruption, people want to lay their hands on that money. But also because they know that there are some projects that the school would undertake, such as upgrading classrooms or refurbishing this and that, or just purchasing other things that the school would need. So they would like to maybe bring in their own companies that are going to, or even bring their own people that are going to get that work. So the differences are there, and that's why sometimes we find that an SGB will want a school principal to be removed from their school because that school principal is not cooperating with the SGB or some of the individuals in the SGB. It's those types of things. But we also know that some of the schools have millions in their bank accounts, which people want to access using even illegal ways. That is something that we really need to deal with, because as you indicated, 43% is a high number, but we are happy that people are reporting these things and that provinces are dealing with them.
But the overall sentiment is that the department welcomes this report from Corruption Watch.
Absolutely, we appreciate. In fact, every year when they release this report, we appreciate it because where people don't trust that the school principal or someone near them is going to assist them, they go to Corruption Watch, which is good because we are then able to receive independently that particular matter from Corruption Watch, and then we follow it up as a system to make sure that the relevant authorities, whether it's the circuit office or district office or the provincial education department, is then going to follow up, do a proper investigation, and then take appropriate action against those that are found guilty.
All right. Elijah Mhlanga speaks for the Basic Education Department. Thank you very much for your time.